So nobody wants border infrastructure. But the question is, will it be an unintended consequence of the Brexit strategy of the British government? And if it is, well, then we have to stand up and say stop. And we will stand up and say stop, because that is not what was agreed. So for us, the border problem needs to be solved with a political agreement, not with technology. So this isn't about scanning or, I mean, they use technology on the border between the US and Canada, but there's still queues for 3 hours to get across. There are technical solutions being used in the border between Norway and Sweden, but there's still queues on the road. We don't want that on our island. And we've worked very hard to ensure that we don't have border checks anymore. And I believe that they, as the Irish government do, have a responsibility to try to make sure that there is not unintended consequences that are damaging to a peace process and damaging to the Irish economy. Like I say, in my view, there's a very obvious solution here. And that is that Britain changes its negotiating strategy and says, look, it makes sense for us all to be in the same customs union. So let's try to design a customs union that works for Britain and works for the EU. And it makes sense for us to be part of a single trade area. Let's try to negotiate on that basis. But the compromise that Britain needs to make to do that is that, of course, they won't be able to negotiate their own free trade agreements on a bilateral basis with other parts of the world. But the question I would ask is that really in Britain's interest anyway? Because Britain benefits from 57 trade agreements that the EU already has. And the negotiating power of the EU as 500 million people is surely a more influential negotiating position than Britain negotiating on a bilateral basis on its own.